Welcome back, Tiger fans, to Rockin' Radio's football podcast. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Nathan Hurst. This is Before the Box Score. It is almost May. It's going to be May if you were online in the 2010s. But yeah, we are going to be talking about the post-draft, the post-NFL draft, and we're going to be talking about some portal additions because, you know, it's the time of year to talk about that stuff. Nathan Hurst, how you doing?
I'm doing all right in a different part of my basement today because the other corner is seeping water out of a crack. So forgive my impromptu location if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening to my dulcet tones, you won't notice a difference, hopefully.
There you go. Cannot imagine any scenario where seeping water is a positive, whether that's a person or a place. So you know what? My condolences to your situation, and hopefully you're not seeping water personally. But yeah, let's talk about the draft, the opposite of seeping water. Okay, so the draft happened, and Missouri Tigers were drafted, and this is a good thing. We had MIzzou, who went exactly where we thought he was going to, Luther Burden, who went a little bit past what we wanted to, and then Marcus Bryant just out of nowhere getting drafted in the late rounds. I mean, look, we all love our Missouri Tiger boys. We all think they should be drafted. The fact of the matter is, you know, even if you're a top, 1% football player in the world, you're probably not getting drafted. That's just how this works. I have not been online for the discourse around it. I think everyone's still pretty excited about the outcome. Although obviously you want more, but 3 Tigers drafted from a team that produced 10 wins back to back. I mean, does that sound about right to you? I certainly don't think there's any disrespect, but how does it feel? How does it feel to have 3 Missouri Tigers from this team drafted?
Good. If you had told me the start of the year, before the year started, the 2024 season started, that only 3 players were going to be drafted, I would say that felt disappointing. I would have thought that there had been at least 1, if not 2 more on the team that would have played well enough to get drafted. Having seen the season and seen how everyone played, I think 3 is probably about right. It certainly, I mean, I don't think anyone's thought that MIzzou would leave early to go to the draft, but the fact that he's not only the highest drafted pick, but a top 10 pick is pretty amazing. So, that in and of itself makes it all pretty great. I think an unheralded 3-star kid out of Lee's Summit goes, from there to, the second lineman drafted and a top 10 pick is a pretty cool story.
Yeah. And, if this time last year, we didn't think he was going to be a first round draft pick.
We didn't think he was going to go in the draft. We thought up until the end of the season, he would be a 4-year, he'd come back next year as a senior. And then, we talk about what his draft prospects would be.
Yeah. So that's cool. That's super cool. And I don't know, how this roster is constructed and what guy could make that the MIzzou leap, as we're probably going to call it from here on out. But you just never know. You really don't know with these sort of things, and so much of it is not only just production on the field, and then the interviews, as Shitter Sanders found out, but also just what teams need. If it's an offensive line heavy kind of season, you might be overvalued. If it's a running back, it's never a running back heavy season. If it's a defensive back heavy season, maybe you're overvalued there. So you never know with these sorts of things. You never know until it actually happens. But yeah, I think 3 sounds disappointing, but really, we'll get to the guys who actually, and give them their flowers, the ones that actually got drafted. I think the biggest surprise for me of the ones that weren't picked, frankly, is Theo Weiss. I mean, we talked about it in the show before. He was the best receiver on this team. And I know Luther Burden commanded the most attention, but he was the one that delivered. He had the pedigree coming out of high school. He was a high 5-star guy, played at Oklahoma, played at Missouri. He was productive at both. He was a senior leader. He gave great interviews when you talked to him. He seemed to have really good hands. Obviously, the 40 time was not as fast as people would want. But even then, looking at a possession receiver, that's not, I mean, there's always going to be a premium on speed, but it's just, I don't know. I'm not a GM and I'm not drafting someone from the NFL, but I was just surprised. I was surprised about Theo Weiss. What was your big surprise on the leave out side?
Yeah, I mean, definitely he's number one. I mean, I'm not sure how you can look at what he did on the field this year and not think this guy has the capability of producing in the NFL. Now, would he be a star in the NFL? Probably not, but no. There are a lot of teams with 3rd wide receivers, 4th wide receivers that are worse than Theo Weiss. So that was a surprise. I think Um, in hindsight, knowing that he didn't get invited to the combine, it shouldn't be a shock. But Johnny Walker Jr., based on his 2 years of production, um, was a little bit of a surprise and a disappointment. I thought that he was good enough, and I think he was a victim of it being a very very deep defensive end class. So teams in the fifth round still had plenty of other good options to pick. It wasn't that they didn't like him as much as they just had a lot more options, and he wasn't quite as visible in the process as some of those other guys were. So he would be the other one that topped the list for me, as far as if not shocking, just disappointment for him for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's let's talk about the guys who actually got drafted. I do wish best of luck to, Brady Cook, and Johnny Walker, and of course Theo Weiss. Go be great. Go be great. That's what we're looking for. But let's talk about Armand Membu. So, 3-star kid, local kid, west side of the state. Comes in, coaches have to get him on the field as a freshman. They find a way to do it. They make him a 6th lineman / tight end. Then he starts sophomore year. He starts junior year, dominates basically the entire time. He gets drafted in the first round. Now, first round has context to it. Hey, we need you to perform. Now you're not at a quarterback level, but first round picks, a lot of times it's like, how do we make it work for this guy? You're given a lot more leash when you're a first round pick. He is stepping into a position where he's played for the New York Jets, which even as a non-NFL guy, I know the New York Jets are kind of a joke. And so he is going to be a first-year guy. He looks like he's playing right tackle. The question was whether he was going to flip to the left side, but it looks like the Jets have a left tackle that they're going to be working with, so he's going to stay on the right-hand side. I mean, look, expectations are fairly low for offensive linemen. Don't have your name called a lot. Make sure you don't give up a lot of sacks. You don't get looked at unless you screw up. I kind of feel like he's in a really good position here, just given the way that he performs, the fact that he's going to be right tackle for a right-handed quarterback. He's not going to be that franchise tackle. Like, he's in a position where I feel like he could do really well and kind of fly under the radar and get to that second contract rather comfortably. What was your assessment of his position and where he ended up?
I mean, short of, as you said, going to a program, a franchise that has been a perennial loser, it's about as good a fit for him personally, I think, as it can be. There's a hole in the right side of the line. They don't have a right tackle, at least a starting right tackle right now. So short of him, God forbid, getting injured in minicamp or in August training camp, he's going to be the starter on the right side. That's his spot to lose for sure. So he steps in, obvious playing time right at the beginning. Right tackle, a position he is the most comfortable in. He's not going to be asked to switch sides, which is a lot more difficult than I think a lot of people might think. Just saying, "Oh, just do the same thing on the other side." It's not that simple. So he gets to play where he's comfortable, where he's been really good, and as a right tackle, you're way less dependent on the rest of the team being competent to do your job well, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So a quarterback, you got to have a good offensive line if the quarterback's going to play well. He's got to have receivers that are going to catch the ball when he throws it to him, that are running the right routes. He's very dependent on everyone else to play well. Running backs need the offensive line to block well. Receivers need the quarterback to get him the ball. Offensive linemen, as long as you know your assignment, this is the guy I'm supposed to block, and I keep him from going where he wants to go, whether it's a run or rushing the quarterback. I can mind my own business and do my best here on the right side. And whatever else is going on, I can show that I'm a really good player by the time that second contract rolls around here in 3 or 4 years. If he does that, he will make a lot of money, and he doesn't have to depend on other people to get him there.
No. So then we go to Luther Burden, second round, still a top 40 pick in the NFL draft. You could say what you want about Matthew Golden from Texas, who got picked before him. That's fine. I'm sure Luther Burden is properly motivated now, but he goes to the Bears. And while I looked past the Jets' woefulness and the placement of Armand Membu, you can't help but think, an offensive player went to the Bears, who sacrificed 40 years of offensive competency to win a Super Bowl and have not gotten rid of that curse. Caleb Williams, a tremendous quarterback for USC, went to Chicago and not great. Now, obviously, They overhauled their coaching staff. They brought in the Lions offensive coordinator, I want to say, which, God, if you want a creative offense and you want it to work, said in Chicago, like it's not your last chance, but it's probably your best one in a while. So you've got Caleb Williams throwing the ball to Roman Duze, who's a tremendous wide receiver, and now Luther Burden, which makes it's almost like it's like a college football, first team All American offense over here, which is kind of what happens when you stink as a team. But whatever, um, you like the pieces, and then you see the logo on the helmet, and you go, well, there's no way this works. But otherwise, Luther's not going to have to be looked at as the guy. He's got seasoned guys that he's playing with. Do we like this? Is this actually good for him?
I think it could be. He hasn't yet, and I think one of the reasons he might have dropped a little further than we thought he should is a perception that he might be kind of a scheme guy, meaning he needs to be schemed open to get the ball, not the best route runner, not doesn't have the full route tree under his belt. Well, the Chicago's brand new head coach is a wonderkind offensive guru who has won lots of games and scored lots of points with the Detroit Lions as their offensive coordinator. He steps in, and that he wanted to get Luther Burden because he looked at his skill set, and said, "I can get that guy the ball, and all you got to do is get him the ball, and once he has the ball, then he can take it from there, and good things will happen." So he's got a play caller that knows how to get guys the ball in space, and that is what he does best. So I think in terms of the scheme he's going to be playing in, the best fit he could probably be, short of perhaps San Francisco, the best play caller that he could play for in this case. He's going to step in as probably at best the third receiver, if not the fourth on that team. DJ Moore is also on that team as well, and he's seasoned, but probably on the downside of his peak production. He's just getting a little older. So he'll have a year where he's not going to be a rookie year where he's not going to be relied upon to be the top one or even two receiver on the team, get into the system, and then by year 2, year 3, he'll be able to really ratchet it up. So, take away the fact that Chicago, as you said, can't ever have a good offense. This might be a new Bears franchise. I think they've turned over another leaf. Now, their head coach, Ben Johnson, has not coached a game in his life in terms of being a head coach. So we don't yet really know what that's going to look like. But if he can do it at all what he did in his previous stop, I think it's going to work out well.
No. And then you get Marcus Bryant, the 1-year loaner left tackle for Missouri, who spent most of his time at SMU, jumps up a level, plays for the Tigers for 1 year, does fine. Pretty good pass protector. And I mean, you didn't really hear a thing about him either in, he didn't go to the combine, and like for the pro day, you didn't really hear a whole lot, and there really wasn't a whole lot of buzz around him. Now, he was a 7th round pick. Let's be honest, you don't really hear a lot of buzz about 7th round picks, but you never really heard his name bandied around for anything. And yet there he is. Last few rounds, New England Patriots go, that's our guy. And that's cool. I mean, it's always, it's not always better to be drafted than be an undrafted free agent, because at least in that case, you get to pick the team that you go to. So you get to pick the best situation for yourself. But hey, Marcus Bryant can say, I was one of the top 260 players in my season. He made the jump to Mizzou for this reason. He wanted to work with Missouri and their offensive line coach so he could get into the NFL. And buddy, you just did it. Which that story is cool as hell. So I'm really excited for him. I mean, the Patriots have just been this black hole of suck since Bill Belichick. Really, the last couple of years of Bill Belichick, and certainly last year was not great. But what's his situation? I mean, 7th round picks, there's no pressure on them, but like they don't carry a ton of linemen. So is he going to make this team? What are his chances?
If he shows out, he will. The Patriots have a horrible offensive line, or at least they did coming into the season. Now, they did spend their number 1 draft pick, the 4th overall pick, on a left tackle, Will Campbell, the one lineman that went ahead of MIzzou in the draft. So they obviously have all their eggs in that basket in terms of being the starting left tackle. But he could easily make the team as a backup tackle, a guy who could potentially play on both sides, just be a depth piece for now. And all it takes is one bad turned ankle or someone roll up on you, and all of a sudden you're on the field. So yeah, they have no other good players on their offensive line besides the ones that they just the Will Campbell they just drafted, and then they signed about two other guys who are free agent NFL players that are legitimate. Other than that, you know, they don't. So I don't necessarily see him bumping to guard to play on the field faster, but you could be, a team will carry 8 or 9 linemen, and New England's probably got 4 or 5 that are NFL caliber. So he's got a shot. I think he benefited from the fact that every team was watching Mizzou tape for M'Mbu and for Burden, and watching the play after play after play, looking at both of these guys, and they might just notice, hey, the other side's looking okay too. Not necessarily a rock star over there. We're not gonna throw a second, third round pick at him, but he's holding his own. He did have good measurables in the pro day. He ran a sub 540 himself, which everyone made a big deal out of M'Mbu's 4.91, and rightfully so. But Bryant wasn't much slower than that. So I think that those numbers, plus the fact that he showed well enough on film, the Patriots were desperate. So they, a 7th round pick. And as you said, he doesn't have any pressure on him to come in and have to win a starting spot. He can just show up, show he's a team guy and can follow directions and can absorb information. And, that's a great way to find yourself on a roster.
Yeah. And then, of course, Missouri had some guys who went undrafted and signed free agent contracts as undrafted free agents. First and foremost, at the top of your mind is going to be Brady Cook. He signed with the Jets, so he'll get to hang out with Armand M'Mbu at least for a little bit. Johnny Walker, who we both agree should have been drafted but didn't, he is with the Broncos for their camp. Nate Noel, the loner running back from Appalachian State, is in Miami, and the same as Theo Weiss. Theo Weiss is also with the Miami Dolphins too. So a little Missouri love there. In addition, Corey Flagg, I think he was invited to 2, the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. And then Christian Williams, the defensive tackle, the unheralded defensive tackle, who I feel like is one of the glue guys that kept that line together. He actually ends up also with Denver, signing a free agent deal with them. So those are guys who are, got to pick their spot to a certain extent. Just think about, let's just take a shot in the dark. Which one of you think is going to stick around the longest? Who do you think's got a realistic chance of making a roster?
That's tough. I think Theo, just because we both think he probably should have been drafted in the first place. And Miami, just looking at their situation, Tyreek Hill is enigmatic figure and may or may not be on their roster by the time the season starts. So they may be looking for at least to replace at least one wide receiver there. Now, he's not necessarily the plays the position of Tyreek Hill, but they may have some openings there. Beyond that, Johnny Walker Jr. It's tough to be in that situation where a team really hasn't invested anything in you in the up front in terms of draft capital. So it's hard to win a spot as a free agent just because you have to really, really blow them away, and maybe he will. I hope he does. It's tough taking that road. So he would be my second one. Now, that said, Miami loves their small, really fast running backs. And maybe Nate Noel, who is a small, really fast running back, maybe he can just, tickle that fancy of Mike McDonald just a little bit and get a third running back spot if they want to go on the cheap. And hey, he can play a role that they need. That's not outside the realm of possibility.
I do think Theo Weiss is probably the most likely, but I'm also rooting for Nate Noel. He was injured like halfway through the season. I really feel like we did not see his potential, his max, right? I think everything was, first part was acclimation, and the second half was kind of working around that injury. So I think he could surprise. And yeah, it's tougher to hold a free agent on the roster when you've got all this money tied up with the draft picks, but also, running backs, very disposable in the modern NFL, and if you need to just carry a few, just to have them and you're just fast, like there's a lot of teams that value fast. So yeah, I'm curious. I'm intrigued. I think he could do something, and I hope he does. I hope they all do, but Weiss and Noel in particular, I think might be able to surprise. So obviously you talk about one draft, you got to start talking about the next one, like the very next day, right? Because that's the disease that we all have. And like I said, this time last year, we didn't think Armand Mimbu would be in the draft, let alone be a top 10 pick. But that sort of thing happens. If you're looking at this roster, I think the name that jumps out the most is like a Caden Green, right? And someone who has a very high pedigree coming out of high school, has performed very well in his one season at MIzzou. Really, he did well at Oklahoma too, but he will be in his third year and another year of that, like offensive lineman who can play like that. High demand. Other than Caden Green, though, is there anybody on this team that you think, knowing all of the blind spots that we have, a year away, is there any other person on this team that you think could be drafted in next year's draft?
I mean, there certainly will be more than one. So I think the best bets would be uh, Connor Tollison if he comes back healthy and has plays as well as he did last year. I think he could. I mean, he won't be a first or second rounder, but he could get drafted. I also think now we haven't seen it yet, but I think a guy like Damon Wilson, if he has a big year, a year that we're hoping he has as a pass rusher, I think he could get drafted as well. He's just got that kind of pedigree. Now he's got to prove it on the field and get production. But if he does, then he would probably be the third guy in that list. And then Keon Coleman, he's smaller, doesn't have necessarily that prototypical large, X receiver downfield body. But if he has a good season out of the slot and can run a full route tree and put up 1,000 yards and have a great season, I think he could get a taste as well.
And Eli Drinkwitz of offenses, slot receivers can feast. And yeah, Kevin Coleman, he did this at Mississippi State last year. Well, basically he was the only guy. What happens when he's got some competency around him? I'm really curious, if he can blossom, if he can explode into max potential, or if it's, a too many weapons standpoint and he just does okay. But, it's not just the stats. It's how you play. It's how you interview. It's how you perform. It's how you measure and all that sort of thing. And I think Coleman's got a lot of similar traits that Burden did without maybe as much as the fanfare because he's transferred 4 times. But I think the athleticism's there. I would look at him too. David Wilson's interesting because this would be his third year. And like he was good at Georgia. Obviously Georgia's a Death Star, so everyone's a rotational piece, but if he makes a starting slot and really makes an impact, like I could see that too. I'm also curious, like a Dalen Carnell or a Chris McClellan, Dalen Carnell, like the way he plays, and he's got another year underneath his belt. Like, boy, like he's been very impressive and he's improved. That's the biggest thing. He's really improved his pass defense over the years, in addition to the boom pow that he likes to bring. And like Chris McClellan, again, that's a pedigree guy. And if he's got another year of like some decent upfront pressure, like there's NFL teams like that stuff because quarterbacks hate it. So I would look to them too. As far as like a Zion Young or like who else do we have? Like I guess Jalen Catalon. I don't know if he's
going to be. I've got 2 more names for you that I'm thinking about. Jalen Catalon. Now he's going to have to play the whole season healthy.
Yep.
And finish the season healthy and have a really high production. It doesn't have to necessarily be like 8 interceptions like he had last year or whatever, but he needs to play and stay healthy the whole time and have a really good year. He's going to be dinged because he's had such a terrible injury history. But if he shows he can play another full healthy year and have a really good year, that's 2 years in a row of being really good. And I don't see why a team wouldn't throw a 4th, 5th, 6th round draft pick at him. And then the other one would be Josiah Trotter. He will be draft eligible. He might be a 1 year early there. He may want to play 2 years to really get him to where he wants. But he's got a father who played in the NFL, a brother who currently plays in the NFL. His name is known. The Trotter name, as far as linebackers go, is well known in the NFL. So I could see him if he plays well. He's got to come in and play well. He could be on there too. And I should have thought of Dalen Carnell. You're totally right. If Jalen Carlisle can get drafted in the 5th round, I don't think there's any question that Dalen Carnell can get drafted in the 5th round.
Yeah, I agree. And like I need to see something from Toriano Pride before I even start putting him in draft territory. I do think Drayden Norwood might have a chance. Now, he's only shown it for 1 year, but he's got very similar numbers to Ennis Rakestraw. If he can do that again, um, who knows? Who knows? But those are more fringy type of guys who need to show it again. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, what was it? It was 1941 and no 1943 and 1981, I think is what it was, where Missouri had 7 players drafted. I don't know if we're going to get anywhere close to that, but you got some names that you can watch. Some guys who have been around for a while who are getting to that last season or draft eligible season. And yeah, if you keep importing Georgia players, like you're just going to bump up those draft numbers. So yeah, really curious to see what happens there. But we're a year away, so we don't need to sweat it too much. So let's talk about this upcoming team. We're in the spring, portal season, so we've got some more portal additions. We want to go over the 3 that we've got so far. Keep in mind that it's April 30th, so like portal's closed, but you can still pull guys out. They can still commit anytime between now and then when the season starts. So there's no more entrants, but we might get some additions, and Missouri is still hosting some guys as we speak. So you're in the future and you know this is different. Congratulations. We don't know. But let's talk about the 3 that we have so far. The first one, man, if you're going to get a tight end, you might as well get that tight end from Iowa because they've got that position figured out. And that's exactly what Missouri did. Gavin Hoffman. Now, if you're not familiar with the name, that's fine. He is a local product. He is also from the left side of the state. He is from Blue Valley Northwest in Leawood, Kansas. But he went to Iowa his freshman year, redshirted, didn't play. But he is a 247 composite 4-star. And if Iowa likes you as a tight end, you're probably pretty damn good. So now he's here, and he's going to hang out with Brett Norfleet and Jordan Harris. This is awesome. I don't know what he's going to do, but this is awesome. What are your thoughts?
No, it's great. If I find out 2 things, it's that A, Iowa has really good tight ends, and B, Mizzou's good tight ends all come from Kansas City. So it's he checks both those boxes. So he's got to be a stud. I mean, you go down the list of Mizzou tight ends. If they're from Kansas City, there's a chance that they're pretty dang good. This year, I think I'll definitely see the field, especially because last year Jordan Harris saw a lot of pass targets that I don't think he's going to now see, because on passing downs and a part of that is because Norfleet was hurt for a good portion of the year. But now they can focus Jordan Harris on the one thing he does well, which is he's a very good run blocker. And so they could be a little more creative with where they put him and how they use him as a blocker. And then they'll have 2, if not really 3, because we're forgetting the Colorado State transfer at James Brown as well, who has production in the passing game as well. So that's 3 really good pass catching tight ends. The real question is, are they going to actually throw them the ball? We'll see. That remains to be seen. But they have they're now at a they have a wealth at that position. And that, talking out loud, that's another guy who has, if he has a big year, Brett Norfleet could see his name get called. Now he's got to stay healthy, and he's got to have a good year, but he's got the athleticism, he's got the size that if he produces, then see his name as well. But very exciting. He'll have 4 years of eligibility coming in. So if Norfleet does hear his name called next April, then he can step right in as tight end 1, because him and James Brown are Norfleet does have 2 years of eligibility left. Colorado State transfer does not. I think Jordan Harris has 2 more years as well. So a lot of eligibility in that room as well.
Yeah. This is going to be Vince Brown's last year, no matter what. But also keep in mind, Jude James had his name called a lot in the spring game. And where is he from? St. Charles, Missouri, which is not Kansas City, so he's not eligible.
Yeah, I don't know if he does. I don't know if he checks that box or not. We're gonna have to move him to defensive.
But also, he's like the one guy who's under 6'4" and the one guy who's lighter than 230 pounds. So like he's kind of a tight end in name only. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, I mean, Gavin Hoffman is 6'5", 237 as a freshman. Okay, just as a reference point, Brett Norfleet was 6'7", 235 as a freshman. So like he's right on track. Yeah, he did really well in high school. He was a very good pass catching tight end. I don't know how much they need him, but also maybe they don't need him a ton, and he just kind of sees the field and spot starts and rotational pieces in case Brett Norfleet gets injured. So yeah, I'm good with that. But yeah, very excited for him. It's nice to see local guys stay local, even if he's on the stinky side of the line. Uh, he's a Missouri Tiger now, so he's ours, so we're good. And then after we got Gavin Hoffman, Missouri brought in a FCS call up in Xavier Lloyd. So Xavier is an interesting guy. Local kid, another local kid. He is from Blue Springs. Went to Blue Springs High School. He went to Kansas State as a walk-on in 2021, and started. He saw action in 10 games, 8 in his last year, and then he dropped down to Illinois State and basically just did the Theo Weiss at Illinois State. He ended up with 106 targets, 66 catches, 912 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He is 6'2". He is 195. That is a couple donuts off of what we just lost with Theo Weiss. And if you talk to K-State coaches off the record, they said they really sad to see him go. They just couldn't find a way to get him on the field because he made some excellent catches. So this is discount Theo Weiss is what it's looking like. It's a 1-year loan, but how do you feel about it?
It's great. I wrote at Rock'em a couple of weeks ago what I hoped that the Tigers would add in the spring portal. There are 4 positions that I thought they could add somebody at. Wide receiver was one of them, and that's just because that very talented position group for Mizzou, but not a whole lot of production outside of Keon Coleman, who has a lot of production. It's a big step off in terms of who's actually gotten lots of catches and lots of yards. So I have faith that a lot of those young guys are going to step in and do great, but they just haven't yet. So it's great to have someone who has done that and is coming into his 4th or 5th year of college football. He knows the ropes. He's played Power 4 level football already. He's stepped down. Now he's ready. He's motivated. He's ready to come back up and do it again. He's got some size as well, so he'll be able to play on the outside because I think that slot position is going to be locked down pretty well by Keon Coleman. So have him on one side, have Marquise Johnson on the other side, Kevin Coleman, Roman in the middle. Throw 1 or 2 other guys out there whenever you feel like it. I think that's a pretty nice steady. He brings some steadiness to the unit. It was previously explosive, but not necessarily the most consistent or at least predictable group.
Boy. So you got Speedy Johnson, James Madison, the president, Demarion Fulks, Josh Manning, Donovan Olubide, Xavier Lloyd now, Kevin Coleman, Daniel Blood, Sean Terry. How many of those have played more than 3 years of football?
I mean, Coleman and Lloyd are the only ones.
That's it. 2. Yeah. Not a lot of experience there. All the talent in the world.
Yeah.
All the talent in the world. And age does not always mean anything. Just not a lot of experience. Not a lot of height either. That's the other thing that this group was missing. Obviously, Luke Bidet is a wow factor kind of guy. He's 6'1", 203. Josh Manning is kind of your bigger wide receiver. He's 6'2", 209. You needed somebody to hang out with. Daniel Blood, who's 5'10", Sean Terry, who's 5'10", Kevin Coleman, who's 5'10", Speedy Johnson, who's 5'11". Like, it's just, there needed to be a little bit more. So I think this makes a ton of sense. And the experience factor, which is nice. And then Missouri added another offensive lineman. Former blue chipper from Florida State. Ugh. Looking for a new home because it sucked to be a Seminole last year, and now he is at Missouri. I have thoughts. I want you to go first. What do you think of this addition?
Well, number 2 on my list of positions I hope that they would add someone would be offensive line. That's because you always want to add someone on offensive line in the portal. It's very difficult to do. At least it's very difficult to get someone really good there. Is Jalen Early really good? Probably not. But is he competent and athletic enough to compete for a spot and to raise the floor of the offensive line room? Yes, he is. I don't necessarily expect him to come in and win a starting spot immediately, but he's a guy that they could put out there and not feel like it's going to be a disaster. And that's better than nothing. And so at worst case, he's going to elevate the competition for the starting spot, and whoever does win that spot is going to have to work a little bit harder to beat him out. best case scenario, he does win out the job, and that's because he's the best right tackle. I'd imagine he'll probably be competing for that right tackle spot with Keegan Trost more, as opposed to any of the other spots on the roster at this point. And if he wins that job, then that means he was better than the other guys, and that's great too. So it's absolutely a win-win to bring a guy like this in.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing to add P4 experience to your offensive line. We've been doing the transfer portal for a while. The spring portal still feels fresh, but I think the lesson you can learn is that you're not getting anybody you don't already know you're going to get in the spring window. I think Missouri got very lucky with Marcus Bryant last year. You're really not adding anybody that you don't think you're going to get, and you're not getting a lot of impact guys. The impact guys tend to leave in winter, and then you kind of figure out your depth chart stacking in the spring, and that's when you go. And so that's when a lot of bottom of the chart guys leave. So very excited for Jalen Early. I'm glad he's here. He did not have the best performance last year. Now that's true for all of Florida State, right? Raise your hand if you were good at Florida State. Put your hand down. It's not true. He was a utility offensive lineman. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Florida State has not had very good offensive lines. They've had maybe one good one in 6 years. And so he wasn't able to crack that. He did see 312 snaps, 14 at the left tackle spot, 123 at right guard, and then 175 at right tackle. It wasn't a good year for him. And again, it was true for everybody, but he had a 4.9% pressure rate. That's not good. He had a 3.2% blown block rate when running the ball. Also not good. And he only had one penalty called on him, which is nice. But his total of a 96.6% blocking accuracy is bad. It's bad. Like if you're missing blocks at a 5% clip, you're not very good. That's what I see. Now, he's coming to a very good offensive line coach. He's coming to a better situation. He's going to be playing around better guys. He's also not going to be looked to answer the question, whatever that question is. It is just another option. It's another option. He's a little bit lighter than most of the guys on the line, so we could use some time in the gun club, some SEC beef thrown on there. I think he could be great. We haven't seen it yet. So yeah, if you want to think he's going to battle it out with Trost on the right side, I hope so. That'd be great. I really hope so. I always say, like, you don't transfer to sit. This is one of the rarest instances where I think you kind of do. Or maybe not sit, but like just be a sixth guy. Because Mizzou lost both of their six guys in Mitchell Walters and Drake Heismeyer. So they don't really have that option. And you lost three, so you kind of need to bring in four to fill out your depth chart in a comfortable way. And so they did that. So I would not expect Early to start. If he's good enough to do it, let's do it. But like, he's not an answer kind of guy. And I hope that's not me being mean, but that's not it right now.
Not yet, but he has 2 years of eligibility. So he can spend this year learning under a very good offensive line coach. And maybe not, and if he doesn't see the field this year, next year, maybe he will have seen an Armand Mimbu like improvement. Now, maybe I don't know if he's going to be a top 10 pick, but other guys have improved into Brandon Jones. There's no reason that he couldn't do that same thing.
Yeah. So what's left? I mean, we talked about Missouri still hosting guys. I think a defensive lineman's on campus or has been. You talked about your piece on what we need to add, and it seems they've checked off a couple boxes. What else left? What else would you like to see? What else do we need?
I mean, number one is defensive lineman, and that was the case back in the winter portal as well. And they really didn't even bring anybody in, for visits, as far as I'm aware, in the winter. They did bring in one defensive lineman from Ohio this past week. Haven't heard anything about that, how that went. I think they really need one more guy to add depth, because right now you got McClellan, you got Sterling Webb. Feel pretty good about those guys. Marquise Gracial, not really sure. Jalen Marshall, not really sure. Sam Williams, not really sure. They just moved Elias Williams to defensive tackle now. We'll see. That he has some. He has. We haven't really seen him on the field, so we're not really sure. But you're looking at 2.5 guys that you can really count on. And I'm calling it like a quarter of Gracial and a quarter of Jalen Marshall, and we'll go from there. So you need at least 3. I mean, ideally, you want 4 guys that are, if not really good, at least you can count on. And we just don't know that we have that right now. So I would love at least one more piece there. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Marquise is going to have a huge leap finally in year 4, or maybe Jalen Marshall in year 3 is going to have a big leap, or Sam Williams. Maybe they will. That is certainly possible. But from at this point, that looks less likely than it does likely. So hopefully they can find someone that they feel good about that can plug a hole, take just 15 snaps a game to give a breather to McClellan, to give a breather to Webb.
Yeah,
that would be huge.
I mean, this defense is returning the 5th most production in the country, and you're one interior lineman away from really letting the expectations for this defense go through the roof. Defensive end stocked, maybe one of the most talented edge groups that we've ever had. Linebacker, my God, you added Trotter, you got Rodriguez, you bring back Newsom, you pushed out the guy who was pretty good, who you brought in. Like, holy cow! Like, that speaks volumes. Safety, Burks is a year older. You still have Carnell. You brought in Jalen Catalon of all people. Interesting, like replicable pieces in Mose Phillips and Beans Banner. Like, this defense, oh my God! But if they can just run up the middle every play, it doesn't mean anything. You need one more. And that I really hope that's Gracial making the leap, right? Just being dependable. Or say Marshall or Williams or any of the Williamses. Like, just do it. But if you can't, and we can't bank on that, just give me one guy. Just one guy. One experienced piece that is going to be slotted in and challenge those guys to rise to the occasion. And then, now we're talking like killer defense again. I don't want 2022 from the offensive side again. But if you want to do that from defense and just be stifling and dominant, oh my God, yes. Because this offense is going to stink. And that's a conversation for later. But you need that. So you definitely get a defensive lineman. And hey, if there's some star that wants to transfer, that's sitting out there, like, yeah, do it. But I think realistically it's going to be interior defensive lineman, and then let your expectations run wild. So, okay. Any other things or just DT? Is that all we need?
That's 1, 2, and 3. I would not hate another linebacker, just as depth. I'm not necessarily expecting him to start.
Well, greedy. What about punter? Can we get a punter, please, who's actually punted in the last year?
Sure, that would be great. Cornerback, wouldn't hate to see another cornerback in there. But in terms of that's all on defense. On offense, you said they're not going to be elite, but they also don't really have any glaring holes that have to be filled necessarily, outside of an elite left tackle or somebody. But that's probably not going to happen. So at this point, I think focus on what is going to be good and make a strength an elite strength, and that's building up your defense even farther, because that's going to be the strength of the team. When we were listing off potential draft picks, 9 of the 11 were on the defense, which is great. That usually is not the case for Mizzou teams. So just dump all your resources into making that just a nightmare to deal with, and then hope we can win every game 10-7.
Yeah, we want to make sure that Gavin Hoffman feels at home, right? We don't want to scare him. The more we can replicate Iowa, the safer he's going to feel, the better he's going to play. And
he's bringing Iowa to us. We're not bringing.
Oh, there you go. That's right. It's an import. Yes. And given the fact that Bo Pribula spent all last year throwing to a talented tight end, that just means that we need Gavin Hoffman to be ready to play. So this is it's like introducing 2 Tigers who have not known each other, just very, very, very slowly, comfortably. It's going to be okay. So that's what we're going to be looking for. But that's going to be the show for today. As always, We appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. Leave a comment or rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter at Matt and H. Edwards. He's at Burst of Hurst. Of course, you can follow the Rockham flagship at Rockham Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rockham Radio. We appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, MIzzou.
ZOU.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.